CM 365, all about Carnatic music.
Is an art in itself and calls for a sensitive mind because of the fact that in any art form, this teaching has to be done in a very effective manner. This is not just about solely imparting knowledge to the student, but a sincere attempt to stimulate the student a love and passion for the art. So if you have to become an effective teacher, it is not important just to be fond of knowledge and be equipped with say hundreds of kritis. That is of course very very important. The kind of repertoire that you have is very important, but more than that you should have that sense of or the rather the art of motivating the students to learn. That is very very important, and also to develop a passion for the art. Only if they love to sing, then only they'll be able to involve themselves in singing, and there'll be improvement. If the whole activity becomes some kind of a monotonous thing where he just learns passively without that passion, then that level of improvement will not be there and the student will remain stagnant at one point itself. And also we see that there are multiple reasons why students learn. Not everybody really wants to become a performer. Some of them may learn just for the experience of the cultural and artistic values. Some may learn for the purpose of relaxation. But whatever be the idea of learning, the duty of the teacher is to arouse art consciousness. And here we see that even in our own career, we remember certain teachers only. We must have learned from many teachers, especially people like me who have learned in the institution. We come under the hands of multiple teachers, but then we remember only one or two distinctly because of the fact, not because the others were less in terms of the knowledge. All the teachers were equally knowledgeable, I would say, but the kind of that passion that they injected into us through their teaching process, we remember one or two teachers distinctly. So that's where I wanted to again focus on the fact that the teachers should have that ability to make the student love the art whichever he is learning. Teaching of music in our own country from ages followed the traditional method of Vedic chanting, in the sense that Shruti or Vedas and Smriti or traditional texts were not studied through written texts. So we never had any written notation or anything earlier to learn, and the whole process was through Sru and Smr, that is through hearing and remembering. The method is oral and student learns through listening and repetition. So here we see that in earlier times, the Gurukula Vasam, the process was first to hear what the Guru was singing or performing, and then after that to try to remember everything, assimilate everything and remember everything, and then to recollect it and then present it. So there was no question of writing down the lyrics or having a book to write down some notation or notes or anything like that. So, and music as a science is bound by rigid rules and laws, but later it gives flexibility. This also the teacher has to make the student understand that in the beginning itself he can't give in to his creativity. He has to first understand the rules of the music, the grammar of music, the science of music. Everything has to be understood and it takes time. And after all that is assimilated and imbibed, after that only he can actually take off in terms of giving vent to his imagination. If you look at the Gurukula system, earlier we see that the students spent a lot of time in the Guru's house and Guru gave individual attention. It was actually not time bound like in an institution, or today we have Skype classes and other things where the class does not last more than 1 hour. It is like, a very tailor-made kind of thing where for 1 hour the student comes online and we teach. But here in the Gurukula system, it was a big advantage because the student always stayed with the Guru. And sometimes even when the Guru was not teaching, he would sit and practice. And these practice sessions were a treasure for the student in terms of learning. Where many unexplored areas would be taken up by the Guru, and the student would get to listen to all this, They may not be actually performed as part of the concert at any point of time, but many such things which never have been part of the concert are performed at home by the Guru. So this Gurukula Vasam proved to be an advantage. We also, of course, know of many cases where the student has to wait for years, actually to get the grace of the guru and for the guru to teach. But once this rapport was built beautifully between the guru and the shishya, there was no looking back, and the shishyas can really recall many unforgettable moments in their life in terms of the learning and teaching process. For the student to actually learn properly, a good foundation has to be created. The atmosphere of monotony should be avoided by the kind of inspiring new methods of learning. That is very important. When there is you teach in a very monotonous manner, then boredom sets in. So every time the teacher has to be very innovative in his approach and see what are all the ways and methods he has to adopt to make the whole learning and teaching process very, very interesting. Lessons in voice training and culture. This is also very important for a vocalist, because unless the voice is molded properly, you cannot sing what you want. The mind may say many things, there may be many thoughts in the mind, the musical thoughts are there, but to implement it properly and to execute it, you need a good voice. So the teacher also has to inculcate this sense of voice training and culture. If it is an instrument, of course, the instrumental techniques, how the instrument is to be kept and what are the techniques have to be adopted to bring out the notes in the right perspective, all this has to be taught by the teacher. Then coming to the other things like correct intonation, that is when you are uttering the sahitya, the correct pronunciation, that has to be monitored by the teacher. The posture is again very important, because sometimes we practice wrong postures like slouching like this and sitting and singing, or some weird mannerisms which we may develop. Like for example, I remember one student of mine who had learned from an earlier teacher, now she's learning from me. She has the habit of putting the same talam in both hands, and it was so difficult for her to get rid of this habit. So these kind of things, when you are becoming a performer, they may not augur well. So these kind of things like closing the eyes tightly and singing, these kind of mannerisms and all have to be corrected by the teacher at the right time to bring out good results for the student also. And earlier, of course, the guru had a great advantage that he could safeguard the student till he reached a certain level. We also understand how some gurus were so protective about their students that they would not let them listen to even other musicians, lest the style gets diluted. So that we also see that in earlier times, because of this, each guru's students maintained that particular style. There was a bani. Today with the YouTube and other kind of so much of accessible material to us, even for one particular song we get about 50 versions of 50 musicians singing. So all that actually gets into us, and our guru can also not stop us from listening to all this. In fact, I remember here one of my students, when I taught one composition to her, and the next class when I asked her to sing, she was singing all kinds of sangatis which I never taught her. First, I was not able to decipher, because I myself have not heard these sangatis. So I was wondering how could I have taught these sangatis to the student. So then in a flash I realized that probably she had listened to some more versions of the same song by some other musician and tried to imbibe all those sangatis into her composition. So it became some kind of super mixture. Of course, at an advanced stage, listening to various musicians helps in terms of honing your creativity and giving you greater ideas as to how to approach a composition and ragas. But you have to wait patiently till then. Otherwise, at a very preliminary stage, when you're learning from a guru, the compositions, at that time itself, if you try to listen to about 10 versions and try to put in all those sangatis, it will result in a total mess. So here it's a duty of the teacher also to make the student understand not to be hasty, but to follow the guru patiently and faithfully. That faith in the guru is very, very important, and to bring in that faith, the teacher has to actually create that kind of connect with the student and make him understand that whatever he is teaching him is for his best. And finally, the student should be motivated to think, analyze and research. It is not just like a parrot repeating that the teacher will sing and the student will sing back. That will make it very, very kind of monotonous, as I said earlier. So where the teacher has to kindle the thought process of the student and make him think about what he is singing, make it analyze, and also try to explore it further so that he explores and expands his vistas of knowledge. Finally, of course, every teacher must inculcate that sense of humility in the student about the art and make him understand that what he is actually taken or grasped is only a handful, whereas what he has to learn is actually a very vast sea. If this kind of an attitude is inculcated in the student, he will become an eternal seeker of knowledge. So thus we see that teaching music or any art form is really a great art, I would say. That itself, the teaching itself is an art in the sense that you are not just transferring your knowledge, you are not just teaching the composition, but you are also making them, lifelong passion for that art, to make them develop that passion for the art. Because only when you have that passion, suppose you are giving up music temporarily for some reason or so because of some other commitment. I have also seen some of my students come back to me at a later point of time, probably because of the fact that I was able to inculcate in them that sense of passion, that sense of love for the art, that come what may, there may be temporary breaks, but they will come back to the art at some point of the other. So this is very, very important for any teacher, so that the student actually becomes an eternal seeker of knowledge, and music becomes a lifelong journey for him.
CM 365, all about Carnatic music.